Did you see the title? I am not even kidding. You are definitely going to want to stick around for this video because I'm going to ask you 5 questions you must answer before attending a Caribbean medical school. So my name is Sam, I am freshly tan, and welcome back to the video. Before we get started, can you do me a huge favor? Click the thumbs up button, click the subscribe button so I can continue making these videos for you, and hopefully as the year progresses provide more entertaining videos once I take my STEP exam. So the question you might be thinking is, Sam, why are you doing this video now? Don't you have the STEP to study for? Don't you have classes to study for? And the answer is yes, I do. I'm trying to study for the STEP and I'm also trying to study for class. But we got a big email the other day and the email basically said that they are introducing a new entering class this year in April, which means that there will be 3 entering classes for the year 2020 and for the foreseeable future. 1 in January, 1 in April, 1 in August. If you're watching this video and you are applying or you are entering the April class or you're planning to apply for the August class, this is something for you. And I know that applications have already finished, interviews have already started. So if you haven't heard back or you have gotten rejected by the schools you applied to and now you're thinking about a backup plan, this video is exactly for you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First question, is it financially responsible? Yeah, you've probably heard that the Caribbean medical schools are very expensive. Tuition's more expensive than majority of the US schools, but that's not the only thing you need to think about. You also need to think about accommodation. Are you going to stay on campus? Rent on campus is about roughly $1,000 a month. There are some slight variations, but in general, they are about $1,000 per month. There are also off-campus options. Off-campus options, if you're staying in a 1-bedroom, it can be as expensive as almost $2,000 a month. But you're paying for convenience, you're paying for a newly built place. You can also get a place for $1,000 a month or even $700-800 a month if you're willing to sacrifice convenience, if you're willing to sacrifice newness of the place. So these are the things that you should think about, because if you want to stay close to campus and you want to be close to campus and not worry about missing a bus, not worry about being late for school, or not having to get up so early, you definitely want to stay closer, and those places will cost you a lot more. This other thing you need to think about is food. One, there's not as much variety, but that's not really under this question. The important thing is that groceries cost at least twice as much. Also think about how often will you be eating at home? I mean, obviously if you eat out, it's going to be significantly more expensive. And as a medical student, you're taking exams roughly once a month. You will be busy the week before the exam, or even 2 weeks before the exam. And so basically for half the month, you might be just eating out every day. And that adds up very quickly. A typical meal is about $8 or $8 to $10. I mean, yeah, there's some sandwiches that are cheaper than that, but like a regular meal will cost you about $8 to $10. So add that up over a span of 2 years while you're on the island, how much would that total to? If you like to travel, if you plan on taking a vacation, because a lot of people do, you need to take that into account as well. Flying out of Grenada is expensive, significantly more expensive than flying within the US. You can easily pay several $100s for a trip just to Miami, and then you got to book the hotels. So one trip can easily set you back $700-800, maybe even $1,000, including food, right? So if you do plan on taking a vacation, think about that ahead in advance. Or if you're like me, who went to the UK for a year, traveling to different cities is very convenient, and you will have time to do that. Every single person I knew, almost every single person, went somewhere at least once to a different city in the UK, to a different country in Europe while they were there. The last thing is it financially responsible based on the specialty that you think you will end up with or you want to pursue? If money doesn't matter to you and it's okay investing so much money to be a doctor that you want to be, then by all means go ahead. But sometimes people don't really think about or calculate accurately enough how much they're putting themselves in debt or how much they're spending in medical school just to become a doctor. More importantly, if you end up dropping out like after your first year or even after your second year, or you realize 1.5 years in that this is not for you, you wasted quite a lot of money. Probably wasted like maybe 50, 60, 100,000. I'm not exactly sure, but it's quite a lot of money. And this kind of leads me to my second question. The second question is, do you really want to be a doctor? You should honestly think about it. If you're considering medical school in the Caribbean or a Caribbean medical school, you're probably one of 2 people. One, You're either someone who didn't really work hard in undergrad, but you realize that kind of maybe third year when you're about to apply, that your GPA is not cut out for it, or maybe you just didn't do well in the MCAT for whatever reason, something that was out of your control. As a result, your scores are not meeting the criteria that US schools want. Or you're another type of person who is kind of in a similar situation, didn't really do well in undergrad, but they really thought that just coming to a Caribbean medical school would help them achieve their dream of being a doctor, or something that maybe their parents kind of nudged them towards to do, or is this something they thought, might as well let's just pursue medicine and see how it goes. I do like dealing with patients. I do like the idea of medicine, so why not? Let's try it out. And if you're anything but the first type of person, where you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know where you messed up along the way, then you should really think twice about coming to a Caribbean medical school. Because while it is easy to get in, it is not necessarily easy to do well while you're here, and as a result to get yourself a good residency or a residency at all. So you should evaluate how badly you really want to be a doctor. Like even in the first week, you will see people drop out within a day or even a few days. So I obviously don't want that to be you and waste your time. But at the same time, there are also very smart people and brilliant people here in school, both as a person as well as intellectually. And these are the type of people who I imagine are the first type of person I mentioned. Yeah, so the last thing you want to be is being a huge bundle of debt just because you didn't take the time to think about, to evaluate yourself and where you are in life and whether or not coming to a Caribbean medical school is really the best option for you right now. This kind of leads me to the third question. The question you should ask yourself is, can you take the blame? And I say this question is probably the most important in my opinion, because you are determining your future and your career as a physician. Not to mention the financial burden that either you're putting on yourself or you're putting on your family, but it's important because it'll help you be more successful at the end if you're able to identify what you're good and not good at. Because being in a Caribbean medical school, there's so many things you can blame if you're not doing well in school. As a result of that, once you start blaming everything but yourself, eventually you kind of come to a point where you're either just very unhappy with life or you're not able to do the best you can do. At the end of the day, there are people here, and not just a few, but a good amount of people here who succeed, who do well in school. They get a good residency, they're able to specialize in very competitive specialties, excluding the fact that they may be smarter than you, or excluding external factors that you cannot control. Are you willing to do what it takes to succeed in school so that you can get a good residency, so that you can be in a place you want to be, so that you can be the doctor that you wanted to be from the beginning? And honestly, if you are willing to be critical on yourself, no one else in life will have to be critical about you. Question number 4. Question number 4 is, have you exhausted all your options? You're considering doing the 7-year program, 6-year program, 5-year program, or even the 4-year program. I can promise you, if there's any chance that within the next 3 years you are able to get into medical school, then I highly recommend that you do what it takes to give you an opportunity to stay in North America. If you feel like this is something that you want to do right now, then go for it. All you have to do is to work harder, and that's not necessarily bad either. Anything is possible. You are able to get the specialty you want to get based on all the alumni that we've had. It's just a matter of convenience and preference and timing. If you wanted to get it now, then by all means come. If you're willing to wait a few years, but you kind of want it now, then I highly recommend take the time. Time will pass and you will be in a more comfortable place in North America. The last question that I think you should answer is, can you adapt? This is probably the most relaxed question of them all. But just think about it. Can you adapt to the island? How much of a millennial, how much of a Gen Z are you? If you're neither of those, then maybe adaptation is not such a big deal. The island life is not easy per se, but it's also not the end of the world. It's not the most difficult either. You're gonna have a lot fewer options when it comes to groceries. You're gonna have a lot fewer options when it comes to eating outside. You're not gonna have Uber, although taxis here kind of operate like Uber. You kind of call a guy and they come within 5 minutes. So it's kind of like Uber. It's not as easy to travel or to take a little weekend vacation or weekend getaway whenever you want. Weather's a big thing for you. Something to definitely think about. It gets humid and hot. I think that you'll be so busy when you're in medical school that it won't really matter as much as you might think. But really, everyone's on the same boat, so you won't be the only one suffering. Sure, your friends at home might be more comfortable and everything, but as you start to make friends here, these are the people you will be talking to more often, you'll be seeing on the day-to-day, and once you all realize kind of subconsciously that you're all in the same boat, it just makes it a lot easier. On a more serious note, do think about it, because you don't want to be at the end of the finish line. Like, you don't want to be 1.5 years into it, tolerated it for so long, only to finally snap a leg at the end, right before you step, and that kind of just kills everything, and that would be extremely, extremely unfortunate. So as long as those external factors are not a big deal, and you know, or you're willing to accommodate for them, yeah, that's fine. I just want to end this portion of the video with a high note. You don't have to be perfect by any means before you attend. You don't need to have the answers to all these questions before you attend. It's just something that I highly recommend you think about, even though you know you're not where you're supposed to be before medical school. But as long as you know, or you're willing to make the changes you need to make about yourself, about the situation you're put in, when step comes along, then that's fine. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is doing well in the step exam. There are a lot of things that people say about being in a Caribbean medical school. Some of them may not have finished, some of them have finished, and also people have said some great things about the medical school. So the way I see it, if someone has something good to say about a medical school, or has something good to say about anything, that means the goodness is there. More often than not, it has to do with perspective. As I promised in my last video, I am studying for the step right now, and so I'm gonna do a quick recap of what I've done for the last week, and this is my second week, so I guess second week as well. Okay, so week 1, if you haven't watched my last video, please go watch the video. I talk about my plan to score 250 or above on the step exam, which I'm planning to take in the next 6 months. But yeah, so I changed my schedule twice already. Now my most recent schedule, I'm gonna be doing 20 USMLE ARCS questions by system per week. Yeah, 20 questions by system per week. This is under the assumption that I'm able to cover enough material from Boards and Beyond and Pathoma within that week, you know, because I don't want to like do 20 questions that I have no idea about, and that kind of wastes the question. But I will also be doing a randomized pass test, 20 questions a day. First week I was able to stick on schedule, but the second week, which is this week, was absolutely terrible. I spent a lot of time trying to catch up from my first week lecture material, and so I wasn't able to do any questions until today. As of today, I'm almost done with 100 pass test questions, so I'm almost caught up with my weekly goal for that. I have to do Kaplan this weekend, and I have to catch up with USMLE ARCS this weekend, on top of catching up with school as well and doing a review of last week. It sounds like a lot. It is absolutely a lot. There's almost a 90% chance that I won't really be able to finish that. Chances are I might do 1 Kaplan, hopefully finish the USMLE RX. But that's what I plan to do this week to wrap it up. So next week, I'm just gonna be continuing what I'm doing. I finished cardiology for Boards and Beyond. I'm about 1/4 of the way through neuro. So I'm hoping to finish neuro maybe mid next week as well, if not the end of the week. I'll be doing cardiology questions for the organ system from today till whenever I finish it. I'll make a much clearer version of it next week. Basically, I'm doing Boards and Beyond, let's say organ system cardio. I'll be doing the renal questions while I'm doing cardio because I finished renal last time. So I'm kind of stacking it up like that. So once I complete a section on Boards and Beyond, I'll do the questions afterwards while I'm doing a new organ system. That way I'm kind of continually reviewing what I study, so I don't just do everything at once. So I don't do all of renal in like the first week of January and then not touch it again until my dedicated. As I'm doing randomized questions from past tests, that will continue to help me, you know, review new things as well as old things. Kaplan, same thing, you know? So yeah, I know that's a lot to put together, but that's kind of my last week. I'll make sure next week is a lot clearer with my plan. Next week should be a lot smoother because now we're really getting back into the routine. Our schedule is pretty consistent from here on out, and so I'll be able to, you know, fine tune my scheduling and the things I do on a day-to-day a lot better. But yeah, please, like I mentioned, hit the thumbs up button, please hit the subscribe button down below. Stay tuned for the next week's video because next week I'll be posting a video about the 10 pros. That's 11. 10 pros. I'll be going through 10 things that I like, if not love, about attending the school in the Caribbean. Freshly Tan is out.